Kia ora whānau. Welcome to CGA, known for Chill Geeks Alliance. Today we have myself, Infinite Mana, and we have...
Aotearoa, aka Guns Blazing. Kia ora, nice to meet you on a Thursday.
And we have this fine fellow over here. His name is Canaan. I don't know if the camera is over that way, but yeah, Canaan Tuhura.
Tēnā ro tātou katoa, pōmaria ki runga i a tātou, nā waia kei mua i a katoa, uri au no Ngāti Parau, te Aitanga Mahaki, Ngāti Mania Poto, me te aro hoki, ko Canaan Tuhura tōku ingoa, nā reira, tēnā rā tātou katoa.
Cheer. Wow, whoa, we should have done that because I feel like I was outdone just then.
Yeah, so tonight we have a special CGA episode on traditional Māori games.
Yep. So the bro Canaan, he runs his own small industry business. His small business called Marama Entertainments. What is Marama Entertainment?
So it's a bit of a mix. I do traditional Māori games in my taonga tākaro, but I also do group facilitation. So I do path planning, which is a type of aspirational visual planning. Oh. And then I do other things like matariki wānanga, marama taka wānanga and stuff like that.
Oh, cool. And just for everybody who doesn't know what marama means, can you explain what the definition of marama means?
There's lots of different definitions or way to explain marama, but marama is the moon. It's also a word that we use for enlightenment or learning. And it's also a way when you say to someone ko marama, means do you understand? Oh,
okay. And pretty cool there because we've got the new, was it new moon tonight or was it the blue moon? The blue moon, that's right, the blue moon. I actually got to go check out that because we've got a telescope
out there, whānau. Put your crystals out there, Iona. Get your crystals out there.
Fill them up.
But you see, there's been a renaissance in people reconnecting back with our atua Māori and our especially the Mārama taka. So can you describe where we are today to where we've come from?
So we're in Dako Nui at the moment. We've got our full moon up. We've just come out of our Tāwhiri days, and we're heading into our Tangaroa days.
Okay, and then just ask, I'm going to just jump into the personal before. How long have you been following this kaupapa?
It's a bit of a story, bro. But, I was down in Otago in Dunedin for about 4 years. And I was doing a lot of stuff down there. And then I came back to Aotearoa for about half a year, just under a year. And then I headed off to Australia to play rugby. So I got a rugby contract over there. And I was a personal trainer by trade.
Right. Who did you play for?
Hunters Hill.
Hunters Hill.
Yeah. Black and whites.
Nice.
But yeah, so I spent a season in Sydney, and took my fiance over with me, and then we were expecting our first child, so we decided to move back to Rotorua and be close to whānau, be close to my parents and stuff like that. You know, babysitters on tap. But yeah, so we came back, and I was fortunate enough, I think it was like my first or second week back in the country, and I seen one of my mates down at the mall here in town, and he was telling me about this job at Te Papataka Aotearoa. And so I went down and had an interview and got offered the job and ended up being at that place for just over 8 years.
Wow.
And I guess it was an awakening for me at the time. So I've just come from a predominantly Pākehā place down in Otago, spending 4 years down there where it's, spot the Māori, spot the poly. And then over to Sydney where it's worse,
spot the Kiwi.
And people always say, you miss New Zealand when you're over there, but it's really just the people and the whānau and the way that you're treated and the way that people engage with you when you're here compared to when you're in Australia. I feel like that's what a lot of people miss when they're in Australia. And then come back here to Rotorua worked for the oldest Māori sports organisation in the country.
Yeah, Te Papa Tākoro.
Yeah.
Amazing rōpū.
Yeah,
Stephen Timoni,
Aye.
a Paula Turanga Nui,
Aye,
yeah, Tiffany Timoni, yeah, all the whānau.
yeah.
Yeah, of course.
We've had a whole lot of people that have come through that organisation that are now doing awesome things in our community.
Yeah.
I learned so much in that place. I revitalised my language. I went to Kuanga and went back into mainstream after Kuanga, so I sort of spoke Māori, but it was more just around the pā, so I started, going back to Te Aotearoa at Te Wānau Aotearoa and jumped on kōtihi with Anaha but at the same time working there, so many opportunities were opened up to me. So to be able to go to Wānanga, go out and go around all the different rohe and all the different iwi, and learn all those sort of stories and stuff like that. And that's really how I fell into traditional Māori games.
Choice.
And yeah, along the way I learned quite a bit about Marama taka, because Paula and Stevie and Hana and all of them, they're quite influential in that space.
Yeah, of course. Really
so,
embraced it and got our whānau and hapu on board and explained it, I think.
Yeah.
Because the old people didn't explain a lot to us.
Yeah.
They just assumed that we knew it and that we'd absorb it. We'd just watch their actions and absorb it. But actually, sometimes we need explanation.
Yeah.
We didn't quite see that part of it or didn't know their background. So I think what's been happening is more, let's share the knowledge. Let's rediscover and let's recover and let's share what we've got. Because maybe I don't know everything, but maybe between us, we can know a lot more. So that's been quite a positive.
Well, if I'm being honest, bro, I probably knew whai, like the string game, Titi Torea. There's not really many Māori games that I knew before I worked at Papa Tākaro.
Right.
So you didn't bring any game. You didn't play any traditional games when you were young at all, or?
Yeah, like the traditional games, but in a modern context.
Oh, okay.
So my koro in that didn't say this is the Māori game that we used to play back in the day. He was like, give us a ball and be like, you do this, you do that, and then we'd just play it. And he never actually explained that this is a traditional game or this is what we used to do back in the day.
So that's what you were saying.
Yeah, so exactly what Puta was saying is, we sort of just, you do it and you'll learn along the way.
True.
Yeah, well, back in Māori, we used to have little kids pre-PlayStation.
Oh, yep.
And we used to play the hand games. Humai ra, hope. And it's like a matching game. Yeah, we used to play it as kids. And it was because we had nothing else to do. Didn't have a tennis ball. You got to stay there for the next 10 minutes before we go whare kai or into the marae. So we're just standing there playing our little hand games. I have not seen those hand games played in the last 20 years.
Really?
Hope and humai. Humai ra, finger games. All this,
I remember playing that hope, kiraro. The one where you have to do that and then go down and the last one to do it gets cut. Yeah, that kind of stuff. But yeah, I never like kids camp, because I went to Lakes Ranch for kids camp, and normally camps do games, and that was the only time I ever seen there was the game where you have the tire here and then you run to the left or run to the right and let it go, and the next person got to catch it, and there's a slap game where you go like that, turn, do whatever. But it was like real modernized though. But yeah, you never really saw any kind of traditional
tennis
games.
Ball back down.
Yeah, especially the
rugby.
explanation, especially the stories.
I was quite lucky. So as a part of my mahi, I was actually doing group facilitation. So I was doing weekend programs, taking whānau out, reconnecting with marae, with wahi tapu, with marakai, with wahi pakanga and stuff like that. And going along and working with locals, and they share their kōrero, their whakapapa with the groups. So that was really my mahi at Papa Tākaro when I started, because I was a personal trainer. And then I had my good mate that actually got me to come and get the job. He was the Ngātonga Tākaro specialist or facilitator.
Nice.
And because I was really doing most of my mahi in the weekends and then the organising during the week, he was like, come along and come to some schools and help me set up the fields and do that sort of stuff. And then it ended up leading to after maybe 5 or 6 times of him showing me, he was like, you're up.
Oh, push you in the deep end.
Thank you, Tumirirangi.
Yeah. That's the one.
But no, so yeah, ended up doing that for, I know, 6 years or so. And I think we were servicing 30-something schools across this area. So as far as Te Puke right through to sort of Reparoa, Taupo sometimes. But then we were also quite lucky that we got requested to go to places around them.
Sure.
So we'd go around, we go to different wānanga and different places around the motu, but then on top of that we would go overseas.
Yeah, I was about to say.
Yeah. So I was lucky enough to go to Canada and a few other places.
Wow, really?
And share our Māori games over there.
Sure.
Yes.
But what did they think? What did they think of?
Well, you know, I haven't met anyone that doesn't like Māori games yet.
Nice.
They're really fun. For the people that don't know, I'd say there's over 300 Māori games in existence.
Whoa.
And you know, and it's quite rare to find people that know these games. I was lucky that I was sent down to Otago and spent a bit of time with Dr. Hauti Hakupa.
Hauti, kia ora te whanaunga, Hauti.
Kia ora matua.
Oh man, yeah.
And he does fight, te whai wawe a Māori, tiki a taranga. So for the ones that know one of diamonds, two of diamonds, parachute, cup and saucer, that's Cat's Cradle, that's an English game. But we have a similar game called Fight, or the full name is Te Whai Wawe a Māori Tiki a Taranga, attributed to Maui, who came up with all the different forms that we can make on a string. So I was quite lucky to learn from Dr. Hauti, and he actually tells the whole creation story on a string. So like when I work with our little Louise, our tamariki at kohanga and ECEs and stuff like that, I normally pull out my 5 string and sit down in front of the whole class and be like, you guys you like TV? And they're like, yeah. You like PS5? And they're like, yeah. Like, well, this is what our tupuna used to play with back then.
This is the PS5. This is the controllers they use.
Yeah. But you know, and tell them how like our kaumātua koeke would sit there and make shapes on the string, to make an image on the string, and then tell a whole pūraka or a whole story about that image. Wow. And engage with those tamariki to learn their whakapapa.
That's actually a really cool way to actually learn about your whakapapa.
Yeah,
like
of course.
A string game, like normally when you do the string, is like the nurse does this, the stars does this, but you actually found a way to. Was this like the string game throughout our the beginning of Māori knowledge, like Māori games?
It's one of our most oldest games, so it predates Aotearoa. So it's ki mai Hawaii. So that's when it was first with Maui, obviously. From Hawaii. But yeah, so it's one of our oldest games. So the cool thing about Dr. Hauti is like he starts with te pō, te kore, te pō, and you go shoot, and he's got a shape for every single phase of that creation story. Right through to tawhirima, tear ripping out his eyes, putting them up in the sky.
Wow, how would you do that?
I was quite lucky. So Dr. Hauti learnt from a guy, Toby Rikiana, from Whakarewarewa. And so the story is that down in Otago at uni, he met Toby at the pub. And Toby just showed him a string form, and he said, come back tomorrow, we'll have some more beers and I'll teach you a new one. And so I think it took him a couple of years, and he mastered all the different forms.
That's cool.
And so now he wants to keep it alive, because obviously Toby's passed on now, and he thought, like, you know, I'm delivering a rotorua to all our tamariki, it's only right that he passes on this knowledge to me, I guess.
Nice.
Yeah.
That's beautiful.
Do you have any string with you at the moment that you can show? Or
literally, bro, there was the one thing I forgot to bring.
oh no! Yeah. Oh, like the actually intrigues me. The fact that using string to tell the story of creation, because normally it's either on a tablet or a thing, but like passing knowledge person by person using action and weaving is actually really special, because you don't see it.
Well, from the stories I've heard, is the muka, or the string that was used, was typically passed down through generations.
Oh, really?
Yeah, but obviously they don't last forever. It's muka.
Sure.
So, but yeah, I did bring along some of my stuff, I guess, that I use.
Yeah. Show us what kind of games, like what items you bring, what kind of games you play with them. Or do you have a story for each one? Like, because the next one was the question I wanted to ask was, I heard a story where the origins of games came from the underworld.
That was.
Or was that the Maui or
Tamoko.
the Tamoko?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Tamoko. No, so the origin, or for some, so what you've got to keep in mind is that every iwi, every hapu
different.
have a slight variance or slight difference.
Yep.
So you've got to take that into account. So I guess all my games that I share, I haven't created or made up any of them. They've all been gifted to me by, or koha to me, by different facilitators and different people from around the country. But yeah, and I guess that's the same.
Yeah. And these games are not like games that you can just be like, hey, this is Bull Rush here, teach you how to do it. It's more like games like that are specially passed from person to person. It's not like
a lot of our games, we're just at the par.
Okay.
I guess I should lay the platform for Māori games. So everyone knows about matariki. Everyone knows that we have hautapu. That we have kohu, that we sing waiata, we do haka, we do oratory, we do karanga, all that sort of stuff, and they always forget about Māori games. So typically what would happen, one thing I should mention actually is that our Māori games were not really about competition. So they weren't like netball, rugby, or touch, or anything like that, where you've got two teams that are trying to beat each other to be the winner, to be the best. Our Māori games had a different purpose. So typically, we would invite our neighbours, all our people that lived around our borders, at around matariki time. So just after we'd harvest all our kumara and we'd stored them all, and we had an abundance of food, we would invite all our neighbours to come feast with us, to have a hakari. While they're there, which could take months sometimes. It's not just
the
a day.
YY Express,
It's just not a day on the week, but it could take a couple of months, and they would stay with the whānau, and they would feast, and they would sing, and they would do oratory, and they'd do waiata, and they'd do their hautapu ceremony and all that. But throughout the whole time, they were playing Māori games. Māori games falls under ngā mahi o te rihia, which is referred to as the time of laughter and happiness.
Can you say that again? The
ngā mahi a te rehia, a te harikoa is the saying, but the time of laughter and happiness, because typically in winter, our people didn't really fight. It was typically in summer, and winter was a time to replenish and to use your stores, because it was cold, it was wet. And so all of our Māori games that we played can be adapted to be played inside a whare when it's raining. And so throughout that whole matariki time, winter time, we were playing games in our whare. When it wasn't raining, we were out on the marae Aotearoa playing games. One of our, famous or more known Māori games would be a porotaka, which is spinning tops. So I guess that's a game that my grandfather taught me, was the pine cones. So you get a bit of flax and you wrap it up around a pine cone. And
porotaka. Oh, that would have been funny. Whose pine cone's better, eh?
But traditionally, porotaka there was a lot of different ways you could play it. There was, building a marae porotaka, which was like an area that was designated just for spinning tops. That had bumps and grooves and stuff, and you would race your opponent around the track. But there was also, just spinning it to see who could spin it the longest. There was other ways where you would tie a muka string to a tree, and then you would spin it, and it would spin up and down the tree.
So we're the creators of Beyblade, eh? That's what I was thinking. We are the original of Beyblades.
We've been letting it rip for ages.
For ages.
But now we've got heaps of games. So like I said, we've got poi games. So typically it's a big elongated poi, a bigger poi with a bigger ball, a bit heavier. And we play games like poi toa, horohopu, different games like that. We'd use our kōhatu as well for games. There's a number of games we can play. One of the, more common ones that pretty much every iwi play across the country is called toka toka, or tokatu, or toka, which is around stacking rocks. And it's a game to see who can stack the rocks the highest.
What's the is this all of these games? Does it come up with like not basic learning but educational purposes as well?
Yeah, for sure. So every single game has a purpose. Our tupuna didn't do anything for nothing. There was always an ulterior motive, or always a reason behind why we did something. So in terms of this toka game, or tu toka, or some places tu wahu, the aim of the game is to have the highest stack. But when we teach the game, we talk about tradition. I'd sit kids down and I'd be like, you guys know Neil Armstrong that went to the moon? And they're like, yep. Like, you know how he put a flag in the moon and was like, I'm the first person to get to the moon? And all the kids are like, yep, I know that. Well, Māori used to do that, Mārama. They used to do that way back when. But instead of using a flag, they would use a toka, or a tuahu, or toka tu. And so if anyone if I say landed at a place and wanted to claim it as my own, I would build a toka. And then if anyone else turned up and they came to that land, then I'd be like, oh, sorry bro, go down to the river down there and look along that riverbed and you'll see all these rocks that are unnaturally stacked up on top of each other. That was me. I got here a couple, like last week, and I've been living here for a while.
This is my place now.
You're going to have to go down the road, brother. Sorry. But then also we use them as boundary markers. So we would put them along our riverbeds, say in between here and Ngāti Raukawa or whatever, or we put it along ridge lines. And typically our pass site was on a high vantage point, on a hill normally, and so you would normally be able to see your water markers. So you'd be able to see your tuka along the rivers, your tuka along the ridge lines, and say if you look down at the river and you saw a whole lot of tukas had fallen down or been knocked over, ring the alarm, ring the pahu. There's a ope taua coming.
There's a war thing coming.
Kahiwara.
It's time for war.
But you got that time, you got that time from that riverbed until they get to your gate to be able to organise yourselves. But every single game has a meaning behind it and a reasoning behind it. And typically they're related to a purpose, a life purpose.
That's pretty awesome.
So what are some of your favourite games?
I play a lot. Like I said, I do quite a lot.
300, man, all those titles.
This is not even 10% of the games right now.
I've got so many games I like. All of them are really fun and engaging, and whether you're a tamariki or whether you're a koeke, pakeke, everyone sort of likes to have fun and laugh and play with other people, I guess. I really like our key games. So for the ones that play Kiorahi,
Hako Brown,
Brother Waramu, cheer bala. John Kingy, cheer bala.
Chat.
So this is an original key made out of flax. Really soft, hits you in the head, it's not going to hurt you. Come in all different sizes. So you got
that's pretty cool, look at that. Check that out, whānau.
Imagine this hitting your face, wouldn't hurt at all, eh?
All those that don't know what to do with your harakeke, that's what you do.
A little one.
Do you get any cheeky fellas putting like stones in here?
So traditionally, say my whānau had a pakanga with your whānau, and we had a big battle or a big fight, and then we decided we wanted to make peace and we wanted to cement peace with each other. We would get together, we'd have a bit of a hakari, a bit of a kōrero, and then we would normally do haka waiata, and then we would finish with Māori games. And one of the games they used to play was hakariki, and some places tapuai was the game that they played with this key. And they would normally put a taonga inside the ball. Sometimes it was a greenstone, sometimes it was pawa, sometimes it was a person's bone. Typically the knuckle bone is put inside here, and then at the end of the game, the whānau who where the pakanga happened, they gift the ball, they koha the ball to the other whānau, to the other iwi, as a symbol to say, hey, we've just created peace, we've just had a big kite, we've just got to know each other and we're all good now, so here's your tupuna's bones back. Which is a symbol for them they can go collect all the bones that's on the battle site on our whenua.
Wow, that's cool. That is really cool. Because there's like all around the world, you don't hear about any kind of traditions like that where they've got games, food, and social circumstances where they can say make peace. Because then those guys don't even have anything like that. They don't have a make peace kind of thing. All they do is stab, kill each other, and that's it. They don't even have a part where they say, come to our territory and collect your loved ones. They don't have that. They just leave them on the field. That's why we've got red flowers all over the field and the war places, because nobody's allowed to come and grab the bodies.
Well, one thing, bro, is, you know, travelling overseas and sharing these Māori games with other cultures. They have their own games. There's a whole lot of indigenous games out there, you know, from all these different cultures that they practice in their whānau, that they practice with their tribes, that aren't really known about, sort of like Māori games, you know, they're not commonly known about.
That's true, that's true.
But at the same time, New Zealand are the forefront in terms of indigenous people.
Right.
And so a lot of them sort of, you know, idolise us as Māori. You know, we're getting revitalising our language. We've got our own TV show, we've got radios, we've got, you know, we can speak our own language in our country.
And so do you believe that because of colonisation, it's actually suppressed this part of our culture?
Yeah, for sure.
And so do you think this is now a time to bring all of that back?
Yeah, definitely, bro. Can definitely say, like, you know, all these games, there's probably about 5 sort of gurus, I guess you could say, across the country, and you know, there's not very many facilitators out there that know all of the games or know a whole lot of games. They might have gone to wānanga, they might have learnt like 2 or 3 games or 5 games. You know, there's not very many. I could probably count on my hand the amount of facilitators across the country that have like the knowledge of Māori games.
So it's a little bit desperate, I guess.
Well, yeah, you know, people talk about the language, but you know, there's whare wānanga, there's kura kaupapa, there's kohanga reo, and you know, that's in a dire state. But Māori games, I would say, would be in a even worse state. You know?
I remember hearing about when the first Māori king, and during the gathering, they were meeting, talking, but on the corner they had a big new pole, and it was maypole. You know, you just grab the rope and you run around and yay! And the new poles back then were, every marae had a new pole, because that was a way for the young warriors to test their dexterity, their strength, how high can you jump. Then the wahine would jump on, because they got their own new pole, and how high can you stay in the air. And you can get your girlfriend at the new pole, like, oh, look at her jump, that kind of thing. But now new pole is just relegated to a flagpole. So we've actually turned it from entertainment purposes now to a functional ceremonial thing. And flagpoles are tapu. You don't swing on no flagpole. So we've actually, colonisation is another example of colonisation, pushing aside some of our culture. And us now realising it.
And like also with the period, like with the 18 to the 1900s, where we weren't actually allowed to do anything. Like we weren't allowed to speak Māori, we weren't allowed to teach Māori, we weren't allowed to even interact with, or like the white people, even the kids who wanted to interact with the Māori kids, the parents would slap their hands and be like, no, they're dirty, don't touch them, don't talk to them. Even Māoris weren't allowed to make their own foods or go to supermarket to buy what the necessities. But ever since then we've started growing and in recollecting our traditions. But do you think there's anything like in terms of games or teachings through the games that could have been lost during that time? Or
yeah, for sure, bro. Like, you know, we've got waiata mō tētia haka that have, you know, passed on with others that we'll never see again. Same with our Māori games. Same with, you know, lots of things. Whakairo, tuku, rarang, all that sort of stuff. You know, there's some weaves out there that, you know, probably don't exist today that died with a kuia. Because every single iwi had their own patterns.
That's right. Like you mentioned, Te Puia. We heard the story in 1890. Apira Ngata came through, and he said, "Look, this model village, they're making carvings. We should protect it." Almost like, you know, this is kind of a novel thing to do. He came back around in the 1920s. There were very few Māori villages left. Te Puia was one of the last. So they all said, "Oh no, we better actually really, really seriously protect this." And that's why we still have the Māori Arts Institute and Te Puia. Do we have anything similar for Māori sports, Māori games, like an institute of Māori games?
So we've got Aotearoa, which is Rangatahi Tū Rangatira, which are based in Wellington. They're like, I guess, a national provider for Māori games. But no, not an institute where someone can go and learn. And, typically they'd be tagged into the PE degree down in Otago, because Dr. Aotearoa is down there. And then they have other people like Hako Brown that go down there and do wānanga and workshops with those students. But yeah, no, I know that I was at Te Whare Wānanga o Ngāti Raukawa down in Otaki, and Atua crew, and then also one of the bros, Choi Tāwhai, from Whanganui. They did a lot of the facilitation stuff at that wānanga. And that's what I've tended to find across the country, is that you've got the same ones that will turn up at all the different hui, and they just get brought in and rung up, and you know, they travel the country like I used to do. But yeah,
so there's no real official central support. It's more community led and community supported.
Yeah, I'd say that, bro.
So it wouldn't come under the Ministry of Sport. Or it could, but not at the moment.
Is it like personally for you, because you are running your own your own business for these traditional games? Is there, in your way, is there a way you would want to change that, like to implement these games more into our Māori society, so the traditions doesn't get lost? And also, like with the other another question, like with chants, of course, these games would come with chants and stories and stuff that could be lost. Is there a way you would personally want to, other than institutions? And
it's like preservation. How do you keep it?
How would you personally preserve it, other than schools? And because not many schools would want to be like, not many schools have probably actually thought of implementing traditional Māori games into their learning anyway.
Oh no, they do. They do. Like, yeah, a lot of schools do. But like I said, there'll be like, you know, a couple of games on month, maybe 10 at the most in one school, and it'll probably be similar games. So like they'll get equipment for kiораhi, but then they'll play tapuai and hakariki because they can use the same equipment. You know, so that sort of stuff. In terms of what Potawa was saying around our flagpole, traditionally that was called a puari. So it was like a swing. It was a natural swing, and it was erected inside the pa. Sometimes it was put on the edge of a cliff, so that the tamariki or even the pakeke could swing out and let go and go out into the water. But that has a chant. You know, they used to say a chant as they were swinging around, and the aim of the game was to say the whole chant while you're holding on. So, and if you let go before you finish the chant, you're out. You know. But if you manage to say the whole chant and you get around, and then you're still in, then you're not knocked out. You know.
That's cool.
But like things like that, bro. Like I haven't seen a puari ever in real life. I don't think like anymore.
The only similar thing is that one where they put the barrel in the middle and then hold arms and then swing on each other, and there's the pole one where they try to jump over the pole, and those are the only, they're not even Māori games, but just like very similar, but we could have been playing that one instead of these foreign ones.
Well, there's heaps of games, bro. Like this is stuff that we can play with our equipment, like poi and tikoka. Like this is our cabbage tree, so you know this is what they use on the islands for their drums. But it's really soft, so it's something that we can throw at someone, and it'll break, it'll snap before it hurts anyone. So our tupuna use all this sort of stuff, knowing, you know, they need to protect their whakapapa and their tamariki. So, you know, all this sort of stuff is all natural stuff. I know this one isn't natural, but I have made a natural one of these, and it breaks pretty easy. So, like I said, I didn't get taught how to make it, so sort of just MacGyver it.
And then these were games that you were blessed and handed to with, people
Oh, hey, what's that?
Yeah, what is that? That looks like a hula hoop.
Yeah, so it's a pirori. So there's heaps of games you can play with this. One of the games that young boys like to play is a game called or kuku in some places, where I hold one side of the hoop, other fella holds the other side of the hoop. We draw a circle around us, and the aim of the game is to try and take the hoop out of the other person's hand. You're allowed to use one hand, but at the same time, you've got to stay inside the circle. So if he gets hold of the hoop, I knock him out of the circle, I win because I'm still in the circle.
And what's the idea for that game? Is that like for war, or is it for?
So traditionally, so say I had a dispute with you, or an argument with you, and say you were the rangatira and I was not the rangatira, and in that sense I couldn't shed your blood, because if I did, then my blood would be shed. And so I would challenge you to a coup. And then with coup, and part of the game is if I win, you have to, in front of our whole iwi at the marae, admit that I'm right and you're wrong.
Oh, the pride! Your pride is gone.
The whole purpose of it is when you're like in a circle and you're pulling and you're using all your strength and all your muscle, you actually start to get physically tired. So you start to sweat, and then at the end of it you're puffing, and then when you finish the game, you're just like,
whatever. Yeah. You're right. I'm wrong. They had a good go too, but
there's heaps of other games. Like, there's throwing games. You can throw the hoop, and heaps of games.
I just want to say, whānau, not everything has to be fist throwing. Implement these things, and you're good to go. Honestly, that's what we should actually do. I want us to be able to go to a school, see disputes, and these guys just doing that instead of punching each other. Like,
it's a great idea, because right now some of the kids having fights at the bus stop.
Come on.
Need to get in. Hey, sort it out.
No bloodshed, but just a hula hoop that might be broken. So,
just want to shout outs to Paiaka, kia ora Paiaka, and Pakanui.
Yeah, the parents.
And if you've got any questions, please send them through.
Yeah.
I will try our best to answer tonight.
Most definitely.
So I'm just going to ask a random question. Do you see in the future a Māori Olympics?
Ooh. And what game could be implemented into a Māori Olympics?
I think every game could be.
Yep.
That would be amazing. That would be awesome. Be awesome to hold it here in Rotorua.
Yes.
Cultural centre.
You heard it here first, Rotorua. Māori Olympics, the traditional Māori games.
But no, there's heaps of games that could. All our games come with panga, which are sort of like a riddle or a way to make it harder. So all our games are adaptable, which is obviously why we have so many different versions of the same game across the country.
Sure.
But so when you play these games, they test your mind. They like make you. It's not just about the physical aspect of playing the game. It extends your mental dexterity. Makes you think in a different way. Like these games here, they've all got taonga that you play the game with. But there's hand action games like Putawa was saying. There's heitama tūtama. There's mutorere, which is a board game played on circles, 8 circles, like a whike, like an octopus. But there's also word games. So there's riddles. So we would sit around and we would tell riddles to our tamariki to try and get them to think outside the box and think in a different way. And that's what most of our Māori games do. Is there's rules, but then there's also ways around the rules.
That's right.
And there's ways to manipulate the rules to get for your favour, I guess. So it's also around that as well. And I guess that's why with our Māori games, they fall under te atua of rongo. Rongo marairo, rongo rōwhare, rongo taketake, rongo puma, rongo mātāne. But so they come under him. Whereas pakanga or warfare comes under tūmatauenga.
Big man.
Oh Lord of Lords, I hear you. Did you just hear your name being mentioned there? Tūmatauenga. God, anyway.
But everyone knows that rongo is the atua of kumara, because you can't grow kumara at times of war. You can only grow them at times of peace. And kids will be like, why? Well, if I was at war with my neighbour and I was trying to grow kumara, the first thing they're going to do when I can run inside my bar is rip up my kumara and take it home. And they're like, so rongo, you can only ever play Māori games when you're at times of peace. Because you could only have fun and laugh and enjoy each other's company when you're tau and you're at ease. But that's why our Māori games are linked with the atua rongo.
So I'm just going to ask, you mentioned something about well-being. So right now we've got almost like a wellness crisis, lots of mental issues, we're overthinking the COVID, the wars, Do you think Māori games like this could help Māori like me settle my mind?
Yeah, bro. Yeah, for sure. Like I said, like it's a holistic sort of way of well-being. It's not just physical. It's not just mental. It's not just about learning about your whakapapa, learning your pūrākau, learning about your history, but it also has a spiritual connection. Because you know you're playing games that your ancestors played, mai rāno, for generations. And it's not just a game that you bought from warehouse and you pulled out of a box and you're playing with your whānau. It has a sentimental value. It has a
lot of history too.
Yeah, and it has that intrinsic sort of anchor that makes you want to play it and want to learn more. Yeah. Because I tell you now, most people don't know much about Māori games, but when you start sharing them and you tell them, oh, you know, your tupuna used to play these games, they're like, oh, this is a cool game. Yeah, cool. This is awesome.
Cool. It's not just some random game on the shelf. It's been on the shelf for a long time when your ancestors used to play it too. So.
And it must be engaging for a little kid to come in, because kids don't know.
Yeah.
They're like, here's some games, yay! And it just becomes part of the...
To be honest, when I was a kid, I would rather look at a bull rush or like a physical game or like sticks with swords rather than looking at a board game. So yeah, it's way better in terms of.
Well, the biggest thing that I guess it brings to the table is whanaungatanga. Is building connections, building relationships, and I guess that's the essence of Māori games. Yeah. You know, you don't play Māori games and be antisocial and not join in with the group. No. You sort of have to join in with the group if you want to play the game. Yeah. And that makes you build connections. That makes you instantly have to build a relationship with the other people that are playing the game. Nice. And as a little kid, as a tamariki, those are the sort of skills that we need to be building in our tamariki. Yes. How to build relationships, positive relationships, fun relationships, relationships that, you know, will last a long time, because you know, you remember the last year when you played Māori games with them and you was all cracking up and cracking jokes and all that sort of stuff. It's the same thing that you do. Everyone remembers all the stories at the pa and the funeral, Nan's funeral, or the bro's wedding or the bro's birthday, but really it's all the things that happened at that birthday and all the stories that came from it. And it's the same with Māori games.
Yeah, it's like what's awesome is that what that really says is that your brain, like, people who made these games really focused on the mental aspects of things, not just the physical and the having fun, but it's more like, of course someone is going to remember flying on a rope on a pole and seeing how many times they fall off, like spin around before they fall off. Someone's going to remember that. Yeah.
But here's another one on the other one. So I'm a lazy fella. How do I play lazy Māori games?
So there's heaps, bro. So, you know, you got your mitorere. Yeah. Yeah, so that's just sitting down and playing that game. You've got like wrestling games that you can do. So if you're, say, on a couch and you're with the bro, there's like a stick game where you can play with. Where, say, if me and Mana are playing, the aim of the game is might as well try and pull it out of my hand, and if he can't, then he loses.
He loses. Oh,
and then if he does get it
out my hand, I
got the stick, boys.
Yeah, he gave you that. He gave you that, my bro.
Now he's the king. He's the king of the stick. Yeah. If you get what I mean. Yeah. But the whole purpose around it is teaching kids to hold on to their rākau. So when they are at war, when it does get to summer, you're not going to drop your rākau in battle and komate. Nice. You know, and it has an Aotearoa motive, and it's teaching, it's strengthening your wrist.
Very good. Yep. See, and I don't know if you noticed, whānau, but all of the toys up here, not toys, but all of the taonga here are sustainable. Yeah. They're all from Papa Tōnuku.
Yep.
Nice.
Well, kind of. There's a process to it. It's just a process to it.
Yeah, whānau, so all this stuff is all natural. You get it from the bush. One of the guys I learned from in the far north, I was spending a couple of weeks with him. He just goes out into the bush with a knife. He cuts aka or hanging vine from the trees. Yes. He cuts flax and makes balls and makes muka and collects rocks, and he just plays these games in the environment. Yeah. And that's probably the way I like to teach Māori games the most. Is you know, just with natural stuff. You know, tell the kids to run out and go find a stick each, or go get 6 rocks, or you know, bring me back 2 blades of flax, and that sort of stuff. Because while they're out looking for that stuff, they're having an adventure.
Yeah, that's
And
it.
they're
That's
talking,
it. All of a sudden, I was visualizing that I was running. When you're like, running in my mind.
When you said get 2 flax, I literally just went two flax in my head. Just went to the. Oh wow, bro.
What do you see for the future of Māori games? I'm going to ask in 2 ways. Negatively, what's all the challenges? What are some of the challenges, and positively?
I think positively, bro. I think it's going to hit digital. I think with our tamariki being so interactive online and with devices and stuff like that, even in kura, they're using these things. I think it's a natural progression for Māori games to head that way. But how we do that, I think, is the pitfall and I guess the concern. How do we protect this knowledge? How do we ensure that it's not misappropriated? That it's not put on a shower curtain?
I was going to ask that, do people steal? Because everyone steals everything.
Well, yeah.
So what's the fear of stealing a unique Māori game, and then someone else puts it in the Olympics, calls it their own kind of thing, you know?
Well, you know, we're seeing that already. So we've got a game called Poirako, which is it's like you stand in a circle, you go left or right, and you grab the rako on your left or your right. But it's actually called Poirako. Some people know it as Maui Matau. But here in Aotearoa we call it Poirako. But I've been seeing it online quite a bit already. They call it the broomstick game.
What?
And they play it with a broomstick. But yeah, so that sort of cultural misappropriation is already happening. It's just something you've got to be wary of, because you know our tupuna passed these down to us and hope that we would protect them. You know, so I guess that's the concern. But at the same time, our culture's already been snapped up by all these big companies and you know stuff like that. So
so just a Nike come to speak with you and want to incorporate Māori games into Nike. What do you reckon? Yay or nay? Nah.
Nah, bro, nah, not at all, bro. Like, I should say that I do have my own business, but I have a full-time job. I work for the council, for the council.
Oh, love that.
You've got 2 councilmen right next to me.
Yes, but I'm actually in the museum team, so I'm the events and engagement lead for Te Wharetanga o Aotearoa. So I sort of my business is just sort of a way for me to share what I know in my spare time, because like I said, I don't want this knowledge to die. And so I paused it for a while, and I've only just recently started this business, and I sort of was just trying to pay the mortgage,
of course.
sort of thing.
So Whānau, if you want to help pay Canaan's mortgage, how do you find out how to get a hold of you?
So at the moment I've got an email address that you can email me, which is maramaentertainment@gmail.com.
So you hear that? maramaentertainment@gmail.com, whānau. Chat.
And then also you can reach me on my phone number.
Nah, don't give your digits out there.
No, not
All
yeah.
these randoms will start calling you.
For
no reason, they'll think you're Uber Eats.
Hello, any games? 3 p.m., 3 a.m.
Can you give me a game and a burger and a... No.
No,
But please just drop us a DM. I'm sure Mana and you know we'll get that message to Canaan.
Yep, definitely.
But, also, Oki, kia ora my bro, cheer Rawiri. Yep, fix the mic. Cheer my bro, Joe. Lovely, brother.
Oh, Rafi. Kia ora, Rafi. Welcome. Checkers. But yeah, any up and coming thing for your for Marama Entertainment?
So at the moment, bro, I've sort of just been helping my friends. So you know, finally that I get requests all the time for Māori games. But being full time and not really having my kids, I have 2 kids. They play every sport under the sun. And I coach as well, and I'm on the board of trustees at the school.
You're a busy fella, bro.
He is a
So I try to fit in the Māori, my business at the same time. It is quite hard, but at the same time I know the value and the benefit of sharing these Māori games, which is why I try to get out there and work with whānau.
Quick question again. Would you ever take, I wouldn't say an apprentice, but like a person, would you, if a young one came up to you and said, I really want to learn this so I can keep the traditions? Would you ever teach, or would you
Yeah,
not
bro.
have the?
Good question.
Yeah, bro.
Yeah.
For sure.
You would.
Chores.
Okay, and like, sorry, we got some cowboys in the back there.
Bro, talking too much.
Yeah, but yeah, so that you, so you don't really have anything coming up at the moment, but you will be willing to in the future if you have time.
Oh no, I've got a bit coming up. Bro.
You have a bit? Oh wow, well done, well
So
done.
watch this space, finally.
I've been working with Tuhura North, doing the holiday programs. I did Matariki Wailanga not long ago with all their staff. Then I've also been working up at Te Mauha Parikarangi up at the youth prison.
Chores,
So I go up there on the school holidays and I do a couple of days up there.
Oh, cool.
And those, what do you, the nets and they love the mahi up there? Did you
bro.
take up there?
Yeah, they
Sure,
love it.
that's good. That's good to hear.
Yeah, I actually used to work there, so I was working for Oranga Tamariki for about a year, but I was based at a residential home, so I wasn't up at the prison.
Yeah.
And then I got seconded up there for about 3 months, and then I got this job at the museum.
Cool.
Yeah.
Oh,
That's freaking cool.
very inspirational, my brother.
I remember when you
really?
when you came into Digital Natives one day, before I started working here, you were doing all your games, and then I was like, oh, cool, Canaan was here. Da, da, da. But would you ever think of like helping the games turn into a digital, like implement it into a digital way, like because we got VR, virtual reality, with goggles, and we have things on, and then we also have what your son plays, Roblox, and it'll be really cool to get kind of those games because it'll be I know it sounds hard to get those kind of games implemented digitally, but I think it would be quite useful and quite easy as well because you already know what the games are, and if anybody who got taught how to play those games and the traditions of it and the stories, they'll be able to, anybody who has the qualifications to make games or knows how to make games could easily implement that.
So I think I've just heard that Mana wants to volunteer to make a game with Canaan.
Yeah. I actually be quite keen. But yeah, like it'll be because as you said, the problem or the troubled situation in the future for traditional games is that everything is going digital. So more people in faces of screens rather than toes in the grass. So it'll be really cool to get that kind of stuff. The traditional games more implemented, especially VR, because virtual reality is becoming a big thing.
I have to say, bro, might hit digital. Not saying that I wanted to.
Yeah. Of course.
But at the same time, what I should mention is I've got a goal to make a Māori game pack.
Oh, what is that?
So have a whole lot of equipment, instruction sheets and stuff like that.
Oh, cool.
Kōrero, whakapapa about the games, the reasoning as to why we play the games, that sort of stuff. Trying to put that together. So maybe look at Matariki next year. Might be out.
You've heard it here first.
I do really agree with that because the problem with going digital is that people are inside more, but we want people to stay outside as well. It's really good.
Well, that's what I'm finding is that I'm one person. There is also Whakaua Savage. It's down at Aotearoa.
Oh yeah.
But I know that he's really busy because Aotearoa, they don't just do Māori games. They do Taro Awards, Taro games. They do a whole lot of stuff. So it can be quite hard. Yeah, Kaumātua Olympics. Done at ECC.
I gotta see that. Actually, book that in for me.
But it's really important that we got it all. He keeps us all together, keeps us working and moving together, having fun. You know.
But what I find, I guess, is that I'm getting so many requests and there's so many people out there that want Māori games, but it's just too hard to get a facilitator, too hard to get somebody, so they tend to go online and they find the game online and then they just do it themselves. But then they miss all the kōrero that goes with the game because they've just learned the instructions on how to play a game.
Yeah, you can't have, if you got the tohunga, but you don't have the rongoa. Okay, whānau, so it's coming up to like tomorrow o'clock. So on behalf of CGA, we'd really like to thank you, Canaan. I've learned so much. You've taken me back when the old people used to talk about games, and remember I was saying about the games. I haven't seen them in a long time. So you're getting me all excited now.
We might even see them even more. To be honest, that would be cool though. Seeing them even more going around. Yep. Kia ora kahu. Kia ora.
Hey, son.
Son says hi. Your son. But yeah, that's going to be us for tonight, whānau. next week, CGA, as if you guys have noticed, we've changed our name from Taniwha TV to True Geeks Alliance because it's more befitting and it's more like us, a bunch of geeks, bunch of Māori geeks, bringing you the news and the awesomeness and everything in between as well.
And so with that, Canaan, we'd just like to know that you've just joined the Geek Alliance.
Welcome to the Geek Alliance. We'll probably get a photo with you later as well. But yeah, thank you so much for coming in and teaching us all of this, man. It's a very important subject as well. It is a very important subject.
And are there any final words?
Tēnā koutou I whakarongo mai. Nā reira, ka hari ko te pō, ka hari ko te ngākau, tēnā rā tātou katoa.
Awesome.
And that's us from CGA for another night. Loves to Levi, my bro Mana, and I'm guns blazing. So amazing, hell raising, very straight off the page.
Awesome. And next week we're going to be starting a new season of our podcast.
Yes.
Second season. All
Plus,
right.
join us on Kick.
Yeah. Awesome. Anyway.
Up the waz!
Up the waz! Touch it. Bruh, give me a fist bump. Where's my